Have you ever walked away from a conversation thinking, why did I let them talk to me like that? Some people weaponize their words, not to speak truth, but to dominate, to belittle, to feel powerful. They interrupt, they throw shade, and they expect you to absorb it in silence. But Stoicism teaches us a different kind of strength, one that doesn't react out of ego, but responds with clarity and calm. In this video, you'll discover how to disarm rudeness without raising your voice. Not with anger, with precision. If you've ever felt the urge to say less but mean more, stay with me. What you're about to learn might just change the way you handle conflict forever. Number 1. I'm not the one. Try someone who tolerates nonsense. Have you ever met someone who wasn't joking, wasn't confused, just rude because they wanted to test your limits? Not to seek clarity, but to see if you'd tolerate being disrespected and still smile through it. I know that role too well. I used to play it. The peacekeeper, the one who bit their tongue, who laughed off the insults, who nodded politely through the shade. I told myself, stay calm, keep the harmony. But there comes a moment, and you'll feel it, when that silence starts to rot your dignity from the inside, when politeness starts to feel like self-betrayal. Mine came in a meeting at my old job. There was this guy, let's call him Colin. Colin loved to perform, late to meetings, loud in opinions, always ready with sarcasm disguised as confidence. And on that day, while I was presenting something I had poured weeks into, strategy, analysis, everything, he cut in with a smirk. Do you even understand what you're saying? Sounds like a lot of fluff to me. Time slowed. That familiar burn rose in my chest. Every cell in my body said, say it! Say it now! So I did. Calm, grounded, clear. Colin, I said, I'm not the one. Try someone who tolerates nonsense. He blinked. The smirk faded. Silence. No one laughed. No one defended him either, because they knew. They'd been waiting for someone to draw the line. That day, I did. Here's what they won't teach you in any leadership seminar. Most rude people aren't powerful. They're simply unchallenged. They've been fed by silence, enabled by those too polite to confront them. And when you disrupt that cycle, not with anger, but with composure, you take away their stage. You take away their illusion of control. Some people thrive on chaos because they've never known inner peace. They speak over others not because they're brave, but because stillness scares them. They throw insults because they fear looking inward. That's not strength, that's noise. You don't need to match their volume. You don't need to entertain their dysfunction. You only need one sentence, delivered with poise, to remind them, you've mistaken my silence for weakness. That ends here. And yes, when you start setting firm boundaries, people will say you've changed. Let them. When you stop being available for disrespect, some will call you difficult. Let them. You were not born to carry the weight of insecure egos and fragile pride. You were born to protect your peace. And peace, my friend, is a discipline. So the next time someone tries to cut you down with sarcasm or play superiority games in front of an audience, you don't need to raise your voice. Just look them in the eye, steady, calm, unshaken, and say, try someone else. I'm not the one. Because the day you stop explaining yourself to those who disrespect you is the day you reclaim your power. And that kind of silence, that kind of clarity, is unforgettable. Number 2, I'm not offended. I just don't value your opinion enough. There's something strangely amusing about the way some people think their opinion should hold weight in your life. just because they've voiced it out loud, as if their disapproval should suddenly shake your foundation. As if their comment is a mirror you're obligated to look into and fix something. But the truth is simpler, calmer, and far more powerful. I'm not offended. I just don't value your opinion enough. That's not defiance. That's clarity. I remember this moment with complete stillness. There was a guy I used to know. Let's call him Derek. The kind of person who masked envy behind fake concern. Someone who always had a backhanded compliment ready, like it was his signature move. One day, I posted something I had poured my heart into, a creative idea I'd refined for months. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. It mattered to me. And Derek, true to form, left a comment. "This feels kind of cringe. Are you sure this is the vibe you want to go for?" But this time, I didn't defend. I didn't shrink. I didn't explain. I simply replied calmly, "I'm not offended. I just don't value your opinion enough to care." No anger, no sarcasm, just truth. Here's what most people don't realize. Not every opinion deserves a seat at your table. Some people speak not from wisdom, but from unprocessed insecurity. They haven't built anything real, but they hand out critiques like they're qualified. And if you let every comment enter your mind, your soul becomes a forum. You lose peace trying to please noise. Stoic philosophy teaches us this. Your mind is your domain. Protect it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that the opinions of others are not facts. They're reflections, and often the reflection reveals more about them than you. You ever notice how the loudest critics are often the ones furthest from the arena? They're not in the fight. They're not creating, risking, showing up. They judge from the sidelines because it's easier to spectate than to participate. And when you respond with calm indifference, not with ego, not with rage, but with complete inner stillness, they lose their power. You don't need to be offended when someone unqualified disapproves of your path. You simply need to remember, their voice is not your compass. It's not arrogance, it's self-respect. It's the realization that not everyone gets access to your emotional energy. And the moment you stop chasing approval from those who don't even understand your vision, that's when you begin to walk freely. So next time someone throws shade, wraps their jealousy in a joke, or tries to dress their disrespect as just being honest, pause, smile, breathe, and simply say, "I'm not offended. I just don't value your opinion enough." That's the kind of power they don't know how to handle, because nothing is more unsettling to the insecure than a person who no longer needs their permission to exist. Number 3. That's a strange way to beg for attention. Some people don't insult you because they're honest. They insult you because they're starving for recognition, for relevance, for someone, anyone, to notice them. It's not about truth. It's not even about you. It's about filling the empty space inside themselves with noise. They walk into the room and immediately reach for the easiest targets: your outfit, your work, your past, your silence, your light. They throw jabs wrapped in sarcasm, hoping their audience mistakes cruelty for cleverness. But beneath the smirk, what you're really seeing is hunger. And sometimes the most disarming response is the simplest one. That's a strange way to beg for attention. No fire, no shouting, just one calm sentence that turns the performance into a mirror. I'll never forget a gathering I attended a while back. It was relaxed, good people, easy energy, until Ethan, the guy who always needed to be the center of the universe, started doing what he always did, making jokes at other people's expense. Loud, cheap, pointless, And then, of course, he turned to me with a smirk and said, "Still working on that little project of yours? Must be nice to have so much free time." The old me might have laughed it off or launched into a justification, but that day I didn't. I looked at him, smiled slowly and said, "That's a strange way to beg for attention. Do you need a hug or something?" The room went silent, not awkward, clear, because everyone saw it for what it was, not wit, not charm, just insecurity in disguise. Here's the Stoic truth. People who constantly try to bring others down are usually drowning in their own unacknowledged fears. They insult to distract from their own stagnation. They get loud because silence would force them to sit with who they really are. So when you calmly call out the real motive, not to embarrass, but to reveal, they shrink. Because attention seekers don't fear being insulted, they fear being seen. We live in an age where shock and sarcasm are mistaken for substance. People will say the most reckless things, not because they believe them, but because they crave a reaction. And when you don't give them your outrage, but instead offer them clarity, something shifts. They expect a battle. What they get is a mirror. And that's what makes this line so powerful. That's a strange way to beg for attention. It doesn't attack. It exposes. And exposure is what ego fears the most. Not every insult deserves energy, but some do deserve truth, delivered without malice, without a raised voice, just stillness and precision. So the next time someone tries to chip away at you with a cheap joke or a veiled insult, don't match their chaos. Don't argue, just smile, tilt your head, and say it calmly. That's a strange way to beg for attention. Then watch how quickly the performance ends. Number 4. Every time you speak, it's a reminder to value silence. There's a specific kind of noise that doesn't come from traffic or chaos. It comes from people who speak, not to connect, but to control. Who talk, not to offer insight, but to avoid silence. You know the type. They fill every pause like it's a threat. They speak with misplaced confidence, volume turned up, hoping no one notices how little substance is behind their words. And after a while, you realize something important. Every time they speak, it becomes a reminder of how dignified silence truly is. I remember being in a group chat where this guy, let's call him Jordan, was always the first to comment, the last to leave, and never short on opinions. Whether we were discussing relationships, finances, philosophy, or books, Jordan had a take, but not an informed one. His words were often borrowed, misquoted, or drenched in negativity. It wasn't a conversation, it was a performance. One day, in the middle of a discussion, he confidently tried to correct someone on a topic he clearly didn't understand. And in that moment, I didn't roll my eyes, I didn't argue. I simply said, "You know, every time you speak, it's a reminder to value silence. No aggression, no sarcasm, just clarity, cold, still, and precise." The chat went silent. Because the truth doesn't need to raise its voice. It just needs to be heard once. The uncomfortable truth. Some people speak not to contribute, but to be seen. They fear silence because silence forces them to meet themselves. And in that silence, there's no audience, no approval, just reality. That's why they dominate conversations. That's why they interrupt. That's why they talk louder, longer, and with more certainty than their knowledge can support. It's not wisdom, it's compensation. But here's the Stoic perspective. Power doesn't reside in how loudly you speak, but in how intentionally you choose your words or your silence. There is strength in restraint. There is elegance in brevity, and there is real mastery in not needing to prove anything with noise. As the old saying goes, empty barrels make the most noise, and it's true. The rudest voices are often the most uninformed. They confuse dominance with depth, sarcasm with intelligence, volume with respect. So the next time someone tries to hijack the room with empty confidence and recycled commentary, don't compete. Don't raise your voice to match theirs. Just look at them, steady and composed, and say, every time you speak, it's a reminder to value silence. Because that sentence doesn't just shut down the noise, it reclaims the space. It honors the value of words. And more importantly, it reminds everyone watching that restraint is not weakness. It is wisdom in motion. Number 5. If you're trying to hurt my feelings, you'll have to try harder. Most people who insult you aren't searching for truth. They're searching for control. They want to provoke a flinch, spark a reaction, prove they have access to your emotions. And when you don't give it to them, when you don't crumble, don't explain, don't even blink, that's when they lose. There's a certain power in smiling and saying, if you're trying to hurt my feelings, you'll have to try harder. It's not arrogance, it's emotional sovereignty, a quiet reminder that you've outgrown the version of yourself that used to bleed for every careless word. I remember when I was younger and words hit like stones. There was this guy, Lucas, who laughed at my clothes and said, "You actually think that looks good?" I played it cool, laughed with him, went home and changed. Another time someone scoffed at my ambition. "That's adorable. You think you'll actually make it?" And for weeks I second-guessed everything. But life has a way of reshaping you, not through compliments or validation, but through rejection, betrayal, and standing alone in the ruins of what you thought was solid. Eventually, I stopped listening. Not because the world got kinder, but because I got clearer. The truth is, people can only wound you deeply when you secretly believe what they're saying. But when you know who you are, when you've survived worse, lost more, and rebuilt stronger, cheap shots don't land. They bounce off armor forged in fire. So now, when someone throws shade or aims a low blow, I don't get defensive. I look them in the eye and say, if you're trying to hurt my feelings, you'll have to try harder. Because if you think a passive-aggressive jab is going to shake me, you clearly don't know my story. Here's the harsh reality. Some people feel tall only when you shrink. They want you insecure. It makes you easier to control. They want you emotional, so they can twist the narrative. But when you stay calm, grounded, unshaken, you reclaim every inch of power they hoped to steal. That one line? It's not just a witty comeback. It's psychological clarity. It tells them, you don't define me. Your words don't build or break me. I've faced storms you wouldn't survive, and you think this will rattle me? It's not denial. It's discernment. You're not pretending they didn't try. You're just refusing to let it in. Stoicism teaches us that freedom lies in mastery of the self. Not reacting isn't weakness. It's wisdom. And when you've cried, failed, been misunderstood, and still kept going, trust me, a cheap insult doesn't deserve your energy. So the next time someone tries to bruise your spirit with a fake joke, a snide comment, or an obvious dig, don't match their energy. Just smile and calmly say, if you're trying to hurt my feelings, you'll have to try harder. Then walk away, not in retreat, but in triumph. Because silence from someone strong is louder than any scream from someone who's still trying to be seen. Number 6. You're not on the level to get a reaction from me. Why does this line cut so deep? Because it doesn't insult, it dismisses. It doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't try to win the argument. It simply removes the other person from the equation entirely. It tells them, without theatrics, without emotion, that they don't even qualify for your attention, let alone your reaction. There are two types of people in any confrontation: those who seek understanding and those who seek control. The second type isn't chasing truth. They're chasing chaos. They're not debating, they're performing. And their stage? Your emotions. But this line, "You're not on the level to get a reaction from me," is a quiet demolition of that stage. It tells them, "You don't get to pull me into your circus. You're not even close to center ring." Let me tell you what happened at my old workplace. There was this guy, Trent, who loved to throw passive-aggressive shots in meetings. Not because he had anything to add, but because he thrived on discomfort. One day, I was presenting a new idea. Clean, strategic, well thought out. And mid-sentence, Trent leans back, smirks and says, "Not bad, for someone who's usually 5 minutes late." I could have gone off. I could have fired back with a jab just as sharp. But I didn't. I looked at him, calm as ever, and said, "You're not on the level to get a reaction from me." Then I turned back to the presentation like he never opened his mouth. The energy in the room changed. Not because I yelled, but because I didn't. Not because I dominated, but because I rose above. People like Trent thrive on being acknowledged, even negatively. When you deny them that, even without cruelty, you expose their irrelevance. And that, for someone whose identity depends on provocation, is devastating. Here's the deeper truth. You don't win by trading insults. You win by becoming untouchable, by making it clear that not everyone deserves a seat at your emotional table. You don't owe your peace to people who only show up to disturb it. This line works because it tells them exactly what they fear most. You're not hurt. You're not fazed. You don't see them as an opponent. You see them as background noise. And in that moment, they realize they never had the power they thought they did. How do you deliver it? With calm. Look them in the eye. Say it steady. Then shift your focus elsewhere. Change the subject. Walk away. Do not explain. Do not repeat. Let your silence linger longer than their attitude. Because in a world where people are desperate to be seen, desperate to feel important by getting a rise out of others, your indifference is the ultimate disruption. So next time someone tries to throw shade, stir conflict, or bait you into reacting, stay grounded. Look at them and say, "You're not on the level to get a reaction from me." Then carry on, like the storm never touched you, because it didn't. Number 7. That was a lot of effort just to sound insecure. This one doesn't yell, it doesn't curse, it doesn't even raise an eyebrow, and yet it lands like a truth bomb, because it reveals what most rude people are working so hard to hide: their insecurity. They wear arrogance like armor. They toss out slick remarks and backhanded compliments, hoping to elevate themselves by lowering you. But when you say, calmly and without emotion, "That was a lot of effort just to sound insecure," you're not fighting back, you're holding up a mirror, and that, to someone hiding behind a facade, is unbearable. I remember presenting a project I'd worked on for weeks. Just as the room went quiet, one of my colleagues, let's call him Darren, leaned back and said, "Well, I guess confidence really can make anything sound smart." It was meant to be a joke, a dig, thinly disguised as humor. But instead of defending myself, I smiled and said, "That was a lot of effort just to sound insecure." Silence, not just from him, from the whole room, because everyone could feel what just happened. He didn't get a laugh. He got exposed. This line works because it flips the dynamic. Suddenly, you're not the one being diminished. They are. You're not reacting with emotion. You're responding with clarity. You're not insulted. You're observant. And you've just dismantled their illusion in front of everyone. Here's the deeper truth. Most insults aren't about you. They're about someone else's desperate attempt to feel in control, to be seen, to feel like they matter. But when you don't react, when you remain calm, composed, and unshaken, they lose the one thing they crave: emotional leverage. And by calling out the insecurity hidden beneath the attitude, you take their power and make them reflect, even if just for a moment. Pro tip: after saying it, pause. Let the silence speak for you. Don't explain. Don't add to it. Let them sit with the truth you just handed them. Because the real sting isn't in the words. It's in the fact that everyone else sees it too. So the next time someone throws shade masked as wit or wraps a jab in fake politeness, remember, that was a lot of effort just to sound insecure. Say it with calm, say it without flinching, and let your silence do the rest. Because when you master your response, you master the moment. And when you master the moment, you become untouchable. These comebacks aren't just clever responses. They're quiet boundaries, calm declarations, stoic reminders that not everyone deserves your energy. They say, you don't get access to my peace just because you're loud, because real strength isn't proven by how loud you react, but by how little you let someone else's chaos touch your center. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, insult you, or undermine your confidence, don't let them drag you into the storm. You don't need to shout. You don't need to fight. You don't even need to explain. One calm sentence, delivered like a scalpel, not a sword, can cut through the noise more powerfully than any outburst ever could. Let them sit with the weight of their own words. Let your silence echo longer than their attitude ever could. Say it with a steady voice, then walk away. Not because you're weak, but because you're focused. You have better things to build. A mind to sharpen, a life to protect. If this video resonated with you, drop "Stay silent" in the comments. And if you'd like to keep mastering the art of strength through stillness, hit subscribe. Quietly. There's more to come, and it's exactly the kind of wisdom that doesn't shout to be heard. Until next time, stand tall, speak with purpose, and protect your peace.